Before we go on to our featured guest today, a huge thank you to our audience for making Fintech Talk one of the top-ranked fintech and AI podcasts, recognized in the top 10% globally by ListenNotes, and as a leading fintech podcast by FeedSpot. Fintech Talk dives deep into fintech, artificial intelligence, crypto, and how these technologies are fundamentally reshaping our world. Join me as I interview the CEOs of unicorns, future unicorns, disruptors, and big thinkers driving innovation forward. Want to be featured on Fintech Talk? You or your client can join the conversation. Just visit fintechtalk.substack.com, click on About, and follow the link to schedule your spot. Welcome, Fintech Talkers, to another edition of the Fintech Talk Show. I'm your host, Patty. My guest today is Stephen Woods, founder and CEO of Stirlingshire. Stirlingshire's mission is to revolutionize the asset management, wealth management models for both clients and advisors. He started his adult life in the military and then transitioned to Wall Street. Stirlingshire uses a distinctive platform of proprietary patent-pending technology that allows clients to maintain 100% control of their investments and execute investments at the click of a button, underpinned by the support of its certified financial advisor. It currently offers also on-demand advice, where clients have access to financial insights, advice, and financial advisors, humans, to maximize, potentially AI in the future, to maximize their earning potential without the need to hand over their money. Welcome, Stephen, to the Fintech Talk Show.
Thank you so much for having me, Patty.
Awesome. I'm looking forward to this conversation, Stephen. But before we dive into Stirlingshire and the business you're building there, could you share a bit about yourself? Particularly, I'm interested, and if you want to talk about it, your military background and how it has shaped your entrepreneurial journey.
So my military background, I think it's very much different than what I think you believe it is. So I was a smart kid, but my parents got divorced when I was 14. By 16, I completely dropped out of high school, right? At 17, I went to a military program where I got my GED. I finished at the top of that program. The day of graduation, the United States Army showed up and they said, "We want to make you an officer in the Army." I said, "That's great." They said, "You need to go to boot camp tomorrow," literally the next day. Wow. So I went down to Fort Knox, Kentucky, completed that, went off to Wentworth Military Academy, which is like a smaller version of West Point, right? Military junior college. 3 months later, 9/11 happened. So I'm watching the towers fall while I'm at military school in a Army uniform. And I'm like, wow, I signed up to get my college paid for, and now I'm actually going off to the military, right? I'm going off to war, right? Yeah. So a few months passed. December of that year, we're on a field training exercise because instead of 80% schoolwork, 20% military, now we're doing 80% military, 20% schoolwork, right? I literally slipped on a log, blew out my ACL and MCL, and they gave me the option to get out because my rehab was going to be a year basically. And so I actually took that opportunity to exit, which inevitably, as I saw all my classmates go off to war, gave me a little bit of, like, in a weird way, like guilt, right? And I knew that I had to do something bigger and better with my life, but I spent the next 6 years of my life just bartending all around the country, Havasu, Hollywood, Breckenridge, all these like fun places, kind of just, looking for my avenue to put my talents to work. But they say luck is where preparation meets opportunity, right? So financial collapse happened in 2008, stock market tanks. I'm like, that thing's going to come back. And when it does, I have to be part of it, right? Mm-hmm. So I start sending out my resume every single Monday for 6 months to 60 firms. Finally, I get a call on a Thursday. The guy's like, "If you're serious, be in my office on Monday," right? I'm 26 years old. I just have a GED. This was not Goldman Sachs that was calling me. So I sell my car on Craigslist in 45 minutes. I buy $1,000 suit and a plane ticket to New York, and the rest is history.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's such a great story, Stephen. Meaning the military aspects are interesting. Yeah, you got out because of injury, but you did go through the boot camp. And you did go to the West Point equivalent. I didn't catch the name. What was that? Um,
Wentworth Military Academy.
okay. And so that's great experience because I've talked to some Marines and I kind of try to amplify this point around military service and even elite athletes and neurodivergent, kind of just the diverse population, how they are very well suited for entrepreneurial or tech or startups. And that was kind of my motivation for the
Yeah.
question. But
What it really did is it really made it so that little problems don't feel like, for some people, little problems feel like big problems, right? And I went through what I consider to be like big problems or rough times. And so the little things, they just don't matter, right? You just power right through them.
yeah, no, totally. The tenacity, and that's very critical in entrepreneurship, as you know, especially building a tech startup, right?
Yeah.
So let's get into that, into what you're building. So Stirlingshire, as I see, is Uberizing, for lack of a better term, disintermediating asset management or in wealth management in some sense. So, but before we get into how you're actually doing that, let's set the stage. What's kind of the current state of asset management, wealth management industry? Where are the overheads, pain points, and opportunities?
So right now, uh, as you look at wealth management, and it's a lot of people doing the same stuff. They're just trying to come up with a little bit of technology to make the advisors work a little bit quicker, right? A
Mhm.
little bit more efficient, right? And everybody's kind of pushing at this at the same margins, and nobody's really actually innovating. Yeah, you have some robo advisors out there where the computer's just deciding what to buy or sell, right? And they're essentially trying to, at that point, take the advisor out of the equation and just leave more at the bottom line for the firm. But that's what we see in the wealth management space is a lot of the same, with just a little bit of marginal differences around the edges. And so we're trying to come in and just completely change the entire structure.
Interesting. How? So you mentioned, yeah, obviously the if you kind of set some foundation around how it works, right? So you can have individual, obviously based on the segment. So the mass segment's different. You have discount brokerages serving the mass segment. But when you go up the kind of the food chain with
Yep.
ultra high net worth and wealth and so on and so forth, you have dedicated advisors and teams of advisors, like you said, right? And there's a commission structures on assets under management. Obviously, robos try to disrupt that, but AUM of robos are still kind of marginal, I think, compared to kind of human advisors. And then some folks have done the hybrid in between where you have a little bit of automation and digitizing and kind of the high tech plus high touch kind of thing. So
Yep.
set that context. So where
Sure.
are you innovating?
Yes. So I was an advisor on Wall Street for 15 years, and I was a decent producer, making a couple $1 million a year. Like life was good, single guy in the city. But I couldn't understand why I, as an advisor, was paying like $500,000 a year to go to work whenever I was doing all the asset allocation and all the client acquisition, right? So I'm doing all the work. My firm happens to hold my licenses, and they're getting like huge chunk of my revenue. So I came at this first trying to solve a problem for myself. Like, why are they making so much money? So I did a deep dive into the model, and I realized they weren't just keeping 500,000 of my front end, which is your asset management fees, but they're also making like another 500,000 on the back end through margin interest, the sweep program, and fully paid stock lending. And it was at that moment when I realized that I was a really good producer, and I'm making 1.5, they're making 1 million, and I said, "Dang, there's got to be a better way," right? So I looked at LPL at the time was the highest paying firm in the industry. I could get like a 5% increase in pay over there. That really doesn't amount to much. So at, basically the light bulb really kicked on one day in 2019 when Robinhood was still a private company at the time, and they on CNBC somebody was talking about their revenue for the quarter, like it was and they believed it to be somewhere in the $400 million range, right? And I said to myself, okay, there's enough money there. We could build some compliance infrastructure into the systems to like kind of prevent a lot of nefarious things from happening. So that's when my mind switched from how do I get to keep more money to how do we burn this entire structure down and rebuild it in a way that's not only better for the advisors, where the advisors can keep 100% of their asset management fees and commissions, but also like how do we improve this for the client as well, right? So that way, if we have clients flowing in because what we offer is superior to what's in the market currently, especially at the higher end, right? The net worth $1 million and up, which is where the bulk of the world's assets reside, right? But also improve it for the advisors. We could really get that flywheel spinning where you have advisors coming in one door, clients who may not necessarily have dealt with a professional financial advisor previously coming in the other door, and then we kind of give them the ability to meet in the middle in this lobby, if you will, and interact in a manner that we feel is better for all parties involved.
Very, very interesting. So that's surprising because I'm not close to the economics or that kind of the commission structure, who keeps what. So just to kind of regurgitate that, for a good producer, I think the numbers you gave was kind of a solid producer. Almost kind of 30 or 35% the firm keeps, and or maybe more, maybe 50, and then they make some on the back end, right? And especially with kind of ETFs and all, they might be even more, right? Like management fees, kind of it's almost hidden. So they end up taking almost 60 to 70%, I guess, based on numbers, if I did my math right, of what the value you were bringing in.
On the economics, a real simple way to break it down. Let's say I have $100 million in assets. I charge 1% a year. That's $1 million, right?
Right.
If I work at JP Morgan, I'm probably going to take home like 350,000 off that. That'll be 150 base, 200 bonus, right? Per every million that I do, roughly. And that's all front end revenue. And then on the back end revenue, which is your margin interest, the sweep program, and fully paid stock lending, JP Morgan will probably make another 500,000 on the back end there, right? So at that point, the economics are really leaning heavy on the firm side. Now, if that advisor leaves and takes all their clients and they go to somewhere like an LPL and they do that same million in production, they're going to take home about 750,000, which is a huge bump up from what they were getting at JP Morgan. If they were to decide,
and Steven, that's like a correspondent type business model, right? Where the firm doesn't have the same structure, right?
Yeah, it's an independent broker dealer model.
Independent. Yeah.
1099 independent contractor, most likely. Now, instead, with a firm like Stirlingshire, if they decide to come here, now they keep the full million themselves. Like there's no cost to them whatsoever. So this has created a giant pull mechanism where all these advisors are starting to leave and bring their clients with them and join the firm. So we're literally the only firm in the entire industry that has everyone on a true 100% payout with zero fees.
Wow. No, this should be very compelling to advisors, especially the top end advisors, right? The numbers speak for themselves. You brought up that LPL independent model, right? So LPL provides kind of the platform as well, and the regulatory compliance and maybe the broker dealer aspect of it. So you do the same, and what else do you do besides the LPL model?
Yeah, so we literally do everything that they do. We're the broker dealer, we're the RIA. We provide all the technology, all the compliance infrastructure. What we're focused on this year in 2025 is doing something that they don't, which is that advice on demand side of things, right? So right now at LPL, basically 100% of their clients come with advisors through their network, soliciting them to join them or whatever it is. If you're a client of LPL, you can't self-direct trades, right? Through the app, through the platform. Everything's gonna kind of run through your broker or your advisor there. So what we've done is, in addition to the 100% payout for the advisors, we've also built the system in a manner where clients can sign up via the app, sign up via the website, like a Robinhood or a Webull or something like that, and they can self-direct trades at zero commission like the other firms. The difference is every single client is allocated out to one of those high-level professional advisors who've joined us, right? And they've joined us because we pay more than everybody else. Now, what differentiates us is most of the time those clients will self-direct, but what they can do is they can reach out to that advisor and say, Mr. Advisor, what do you think I should buy? Mr. Advisor is going to give them a hyper-personalized recommendation specifically for that client. And that recommendation that's being made instantly pops up on the client's phone and desktop. Client just hits the confirm button, which actually routes that trade out to the market makers for execution. Now that that advice that's just been given hasn't cost that client anything, right? They're not paying an asset management fee on that. The only time they actually pay anything is in the future when they sell that specific position for a profit. There's a small commission on the sell side, which the advisor keeps 100% of. So in essence, what we've done is we built a system that allows people to self-direct at zero commission like the other firms, but also allows us to sell professional advice in an on-demand basis and tie that compensation directly to the outcome of the specific advice rather than here's all my money, you just do whatever you want to do and keep some of it, right? So we think that that's much more fair for everyone involved.
No, totally. Meaning, I kind of phrased it earlier, the high touch and high tech, right? And it's particularly appealing maybe to the millennial
Mhm.
population, right? Because they like to kind of do it themselves or have that kind of technology kind of trade on the iPad and so on and so forth. So is that kind of your one of your targets, kind of the segment, kind of the young and wealthy?
That's 100% right. Whenever you think about, put yourself in the position of a 30-year-old, right? You probably started investing on an app. It was probably Robinhood or Webull or something like that. Now, if God forbid you inherit $1 million tomorrow, right? You're basically faced with two options right now. Number one, do I put it at Morgan Stanley and Merrill Lynch and pay 1% a year, whether it's up, down, or sideways, right? Option number two, do I fire it into my Robinhood or Webull account and just kind of trade it myself? Maybe I use a robo advisor there and they charge me 0.5%, right? So yeah, we do both of those as well. We can do the fully managed side, we can do the 100% self-directed, but it's that third option, that advice on demand, that kind of sets us apart. And that's what we think is really going to resonate with the younger crowd. Because instead of like their parents went from fully managed, paying 1% every year, then over time we're kind of transitioned over to the E-Trades and the TD Ameritrades of the world, kind of move towards technology. Whereas these younger people, they're technology first, right? So they're coming from paying nothing. We think the logical step is not from pay nothing to just here, take a portion of my money. We think the logical step is from pay nothing to, hey, I'm going to pay you some money whenever you actually make me money.
Yeah, yeah. No, I like the advice on demand, and there's huge focus, at least in the traditional side, around financial planning, goal-based advice, and that kind of stuff, right? So you have kids in college, we have high schoolers, and if you talk to the advisors, they talk about spending for college or what have you, retirement. So is there a financial planning component, Stephen, to that on-demand advice as well?
Absolutely. So what we've done is we've kind of taken the best of the tools that exist already, and we've wrapped them around our patent pending trade confirmation process. So whenever it comes to the planning side of things, listen, we're not trying to reinvent the wheel here. We integrated Money Guide Pro to help on the planning side of things, and we have some other technologies that help us like with the rebalancing and things of that nature. So from the tech side of things, we're not creating every little step along the way. Whenever there's a great piece out there that we can kind of, put together. At the end of the day, whenever you look at Tesla or even SpaceX or anything like that, they didn't invent an automobile, right? They didn't invent the rocket. They invented a new way to put them together, right? And new components to go into this. So that's kind of, what we're trying to do here.
Yeah, I think Peter Thiel echoes that sentiment. I think I've heard him speak in podcasts or in conferences. What you just said, right? So they're kind of hardcore innovators, and there are these integrators, I think calls them that or something like that, who piece it together and create huge values to workflow.
Yep.
And as I see it, you are doing that. You're taking the asset management, wealth management workflow across these different segments, not just one segment, right? Maybe the high net worth, the mass affluent as well, the millennial, of course, and you're totally transforming that whole workflow and changing the economics so that even the end client and the advisors in the middle benefit a lot. So it's true disruption as I see it.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that. Yeah, we're working hard on it. Got some world-class talent behind me. You know, yeah, I had the idea, but I went out and I got, great people like my CTO is the former global head of technology for State Street. Uh,
Mhm.
one of my board members is the former president and chief compliance officer of Robinhood. I even had a former chairman of the SEC on my board till he tragically passed away.
Oh,
So basically, I went out there. I've got the smartest talent I can get my hands on, and we've really been lucky that the market seems to be very receptive to what we're trying to do.
cool. So tell us, man, you've been around for some time. I know the idea kind of formed or you were kind of doing yourself during the financial crisis. That was a long time ago. But Stirlingshire has been for I think 2017 you said, or eight?
No. Stirlingshire, we got FINRA approved at the end of 2022.
Oh, 22. Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. 2023 was we did our first real money test trades, right? So 2023 was me and like a couple of my friends just making sure we're getting all processes worked out, making sure like the system works, making sure we're not gonna like blow it up, right? 2024 was all about how do we lay the foundation now that we're going to start hiring. So we went out, we hired 40 advisors the first year. Our
Wow.
goal, yeah, really, really awesome. Our goal is to hire 300 this year. Ultimately, our goal is to hire 5,000 over the next 5 years, which is about 1% of the industry, a little less. There's like 620,000 licensed financial advisors in the industry. But we want to get 5,000 of them. To put that in scale, LPL has like 20,000 or something like that. So we feel that if we're able to reach that goal, it's going to go a long ways into making a deep impact in the actual structure of the asset management model at other firms. Whenever you think about it, like Robinhood, for example, 12 years ago, everyone's charging $20 a trade, right? They came out of the blue. They said, we're going to charge zero. Everyone left like crazy. Like they're going to be out of business in no time. Over the next decade, everybody had to change their model to kind of mimic what Robinhood is doing on the self-directed side of things, right? So our goal is to do the same, but at the full service spectrum, which is obviously much higher net worth clients and things like that. And if we're successful in driving the LPLs and those AICs and other people like that forward and kind of adopting our model because we're basically ripping clients and ripping advisors from their clutches, then everybody involved is going to do well, and we think we'll do well, and it'll be more impactful to me than any set number of dollars that could flow to me, because at the end of the day, all I really care about is improving the asset management model and leaving my mark on the world. And if I'm able to do that to the independents, then I couldn't be any happier.
Great, great. Yeah. And it should sell itself, meaning you're obviously targeting advisors first, looks like, right? Not maybe the end client, although there might be a component, the the advice on demand is probably attractive and stuff like that. But I'm assuming the advisors come with their book of business, and that's how your AUM grows. And
Correct.
and they can obviously get new customers as well. So no, good luck. 5,000 is a good number, and that will get you to a good place in AUM and your revenue metrics and stuff like that, which is obviously and we'll talk about your fundraising plans and stuff, but that's something that the folks look at, right? Especially if you're going to venture money. Why don't we talk about that right now? So where are you on the stage around raising capital? Do you have your own capital so
Yep.
far?
So yeah, so in order to start, I raised a $2.7 million seed round from my clients and my family. Right. So I was lucky enough where I made clients decent money, right, in my career on Wall Street. So I literally quit my job because you can't start your own firm while you're working at another one. They just kind of frown on that, right? So I quit my job in the middle of COVID. I went on an 20-day road trip during the height of COVID at the end of 2020,
Wow.
drove around the country, hat in hand, selling this idea that I had for an improved market structure. My clients gave me 2.7 million. I used that to get through FINRA approval, SEC approval, build out all the technology, get our first 40 advisors in the platform. We did about 5 million in revenue since inception, including we just had our very first $1 million revenue month, which was incredible. So now I'm turning to a Series A, going out and beginning to do our first institutional round now. So we're talking to VCs coast to coast, up and down the tiers, and the response we're getting is immense. Some of the offers I don't necessarily like, and so because we're not necessarily you know hurting for cash, I don't have to take them. So this fundraising effort we're doing, we're raising a $20 million Series A. I intend to put 2 million into myself into this round. Uh, People from my network are going to come in with about 8 million, and then VC for 10 million and take a board seat. So
That's great. That's great. Meaning in VC, meaning I do some investments, but I'm kind of familiar with the VC world. I don't in a firm. I just do through my syndicate. One
yep,
of the big things for LPs is GP commitments,
yep.
like them putting their own kind of money in the fund. So your case is kind of similar, right? You are a founder and you're putting a lot even in your Series A.
Mhm.
So I wouldn't see any problem with you raising at a good valuation. So good luck with that, Stephen. And that's great. But the road trip, I don't know we have time, but real quick, what was the fun part? I mean, obviously you were on a mission to kind of raise money for your venture, but that seems like a lot. You went from the East Coast all the way to West. Did you come here to the Bay Area and things, or
I,
where? What?
I took off a few days before Thanksgiving in 2020, and my assistant, bless his heart, Craig Herman, he drove from New York to Boise, Idaho, Boise, Idaho to LA, LA to Miami, Miami back to New York, and we stopped and visited my clients all along the way. I had like a few dozen meetings, not a few, but like 2 dozen meetings over those 20 days. And that was an experience to say the least. But uh, my back has never been the same after sitting in a car for 20 days. I'm telling you, it was averaging about 500 miles a day. It was wild, but yeah, at the end, it really paid off.
Yeah, that sounds good. I mean, I haven't done some big trips. I mean, I think we can do a podcast just on that road trip and where you
Yeah.
stopped and what you learned and how are the people in different states. Because it'd be like, I mean, I know some bikers like not like they road bike cross
Yeah.
country, and that's a lot of miles. I know time wise, I kind of keep it loose, and I can go a few more minutes. You're good, Stephen, for a few more minutes. We have a couple more
Couple more
threads.
minutes. Sure.
Okay. Um, it's 2025, right? We'd be remiss if we don't talk about AI, agentic AI,
Yep.
Trump 2.0, and last weekend, if you've been tracking the whole DeepSeek development from China. And kind of resurgence of crypto and tokenization and all that. I think that connects to a little bit on wealth management and alt investments, if you will.
Mhm.
So that's a lot to unpack. I'll give you the choice. Which one do you want to start talk about?
Sure.
Agentic or the resurgence of crypto? Go for it.
I think AI is something we can definitely talk about as it relates to wealth management and things like that. So what we're every firm needs to have a strategy as it relates to AI, right? Um, I think we're going to do what a lot of people are doing, and that is not build it ourselves, right? We're going to go out, and we have went out. We met with, for example, the venture team at Nasdaq Venture Team. They made a couple really awesome connections in the AI financial advisor space, and what we think that the near future, when I say near future, I'm talking for the next 5 years or so, it's not going to be a situation where the AI is doing all the buying and selling and doing all the rebalancing and things like that, although clearly that exists in the robo advisory space. But as it relates to full service asset management, they're really going to be tools in order to make your advisors work more efficiently, right? So, for example, we piped in some AI tools into our systems now, and they can ingest all the client data, the transactions, and you can even have, type in the notes and things like that. So, for example, let's say somebody wants to buy a house in 3 years, and uh, a quarter or two can go past. You can see in the AI, tell me about Mr. Smith's the last quarter. Now the system will give it a breakdown of how the last quarter performed. It'll make a couple of recommendations of changes in order to help him reach his goal of this, right? We believe that he should make these specific changes. And these are tasks that would normally take your advisor like 30 minutes, and they can be done in 30 seconds. And so whenever you have that capability, it really gives you the ability to have many more clients than you typically would, right? So you kind of hit that wall of the number of clients you can have on the full service side of things much earlier than you would on like obviously the self-directed side. But with the AI, now you can have 3 or 4 times as many clients, which generates the 3 or 4 times as much revenue for you, at the end of the day.
Yeah, no, totally. And I know what you mentioned, Morgan Stanley. I think they announced that this was like maybe last year or even 18 months ago that they were working with OpenAI to kind of build similar stuff. And advisor productivity was one of their main focus. But what I hear now, and I see a lot of startups, agentic or agent, which is more autonomous. They are not just co-pilots sitting next to an advisor, but they can do. So it's a full spectrum. And as you say, rightly, that it's a scale, right? So a human plus AI can do much more than just the human alone or human with software.
Yeah.
So it's a brave new world, and
I
we'll.
do believe you're going to see a lot more of that on some of the tasks that aren't going to be so in the regulators' bullseye, right? Because at the end of the day, you can't just have the system just without, I mean, tons and tons of disclosure, but the system's just spitting out actions into client accounts and things like that, without the regulators just going wild on you, because they're going to want to know, how did this come up with that recommendation? Why is this recommendation? How do you know that it's not hallucinating? And until you get more regulatory framework, although the Trump 2.0, like you said, there might be a lot less regulatory framework. You really run the risk of, especially as a small firm, stepping on a landmine that you can't recover from, right? Now, Morgan Stanley, listen, between me and you and everybody else watching, Morgan Stanley can pay a big giant fine for something going wrong. A
Right.
startup, we can't, right? So we have to kind of be very careful to make sure that framework is there.
Yeah, you don't want to be the first mover and take on that technology adoption or the regulatory risk, as you say, and you want to wait for things to solidify. And I think in that cycle, we're still early, meaning there's obviously a lot of noise going around with the optimism, the DeepSeek, which is kind of more infrastructure or training and cost and stuff. But in terms of applications, I think it's still ongoing. And a lot of startups are there. I mean, I see agentic startups every week. And not just in financial services, like trying to do other things. But yeah, it's a brave new world. We'll see where we go. Kind of moving on to closing, Stephen, what are some of your next milestones? Who are you looking to connect? I know you talked about advisors rising to 5,000. I have a diverse audience, maybe not a whole lot of advisors, more the techies or the investors and the startups and the bankers, so to speak, but they might be a handful. So who are you looking to connect, and where should people connect with you on?
So you can connect with us on every single social media site out there. You name it: X, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, the whole 9 yards, everywhere you would expect. So what I'd really like to say here to wrap everything up is I believe the world as we know it from the full service side of things is going to look considerably different over the next 5 years. I think you're going to see, if we are successful, you're going to see a transition from, hey, Mr. Advisor, Mrs. Advisor, I'm going to give you all of my money. You just keep a set percentage of it every year, regardless of how you do, to Mr. Advisor, Mrs. Advisor, I'm going to give you my money, and whenever you do a good job, I'm going to give you some of it, right? So listen, as it relates to other organizations we might want to, link up to. Listen, there's this guy, Elon Musk, he's got this everything app that's coming, right? Maybe someday we'll talk to somebody like that, and you could see something like this built into a system like that.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. Outcome-based everything. I mean, now why not wealth management? I think that I was listening to one of the cabinet nominees today, HHS, and they're talking about health outcomes and how they're poor. So what you're laying out for asset and wealth management, that reward should be outcome-based, is a
Mhm.
no-brainer. It should have been there all the time. And
Absolutely.
it'd be great to see Stirlingshire and Stephen, you accomplish that and do well in the industry. Um, thank you for taking time and being on the FinTech Talk Show, Stephen.
Thank you. Just last point here. If anybody like, they can find us in the App Store, download it, and happy to let them have a whirl and see what advice on demand really looks like for them.
Sounds good. So Stephen Woods on LinkedIn, X, and other social media, and Stirlingshire app is called just that on
Yep.
the App Store.
It's Stirlingshire Invest and Trade, and that's Stirlingshire with an I,
Yeah,
STIRLINGSHIRE.
not like the UK currency. So STIR. Yeah, Stirlingshire um, on the App Store. So do check it out. Thank you again, Stephen. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.